Hey there guys, today's going to be the latest installment of the Shipping Container Shop series, and we're going to be talking about concrete, as you can see by the brand new pad and the culvert cistern that I installed, although the culvert cistern is going to be kind of its own video that'll come up once I get the inside sealed and all the plumbing finished. But today we're going to talk about the concrete, so it may not be interesting to some of you, and some of you it might be. It was a job that was way bigger than I was anticipating, and I ended up having a lot more help than I had even asked for, so it ended up turning out well. But let me show you the process, and then I will try to answer some questions about it at the end. In preparation for this pour, I first started out by building my concrete forms, and I did this with standard 2x4s and then leveled them out with concrete stakes and then graded the ground underneath to where I had a slab thickness of about 4.5 to 5.5 inches thick. I lined the inside about midway up with concrete remesh and the perimeters with 3/8 inch rebar, although you don't see that in some of these clips. Here's the culvert cistern forms, and that had quite a bit more detail, but I will touch more on that in that video. And here is the walkway going between the two slabs, and then I just compacted the ground with a homemade tamper that I made with a T-post and a piece of steel. Level. These are level. The day of the pour was a pretty exciting moment, although pretty stressful overall. I was just a little bit worried about making sure everything got worked in time for me to set the culvert, as you see me pulling up right here, and making sure that mix was soupy enough. But luckily, all the hands I had helping, Bryce, Adam, my wife's Uncle Norman, my brother, my dad, my sister, and my neighbor Taylor, really made the job pretty darn smooth. And a lot of those guys just have so much more skill level than I do in concrete. This is just us leveling out or plumbing out the culvert, and then now we are starting on the main slab in front of the shop. Once we had enough concrete in an area, we then used a screeder board to work the mix down and give us a general level. Once we had all the forms filled, I then asked the driver to fill a little secondary form that I had made just in case we had extra mix available. Here's my neighbor Taylor. He's just kind of roughing it out for me. And honestly, I way overestimated because I could have filled up 20 of these forms. We had probably about a yard extra. This is Bryce, and he is working on floating the big slab, both lengthwise and widthwise. I'm pretty sure if I would have tried this on my own with the zero experience I've had floating concrete like this, it would have resulted in a real nice wavy action. And here is Adam. He is starting to do the edging on all of the forms. Everybody did a little bit, but those guys really did all of the nice work. Here's Bryce again. He is doing a general hand float, just leveling out some of the imperfections.
Yeah. That's what seals it, dude. That's what seals it. When the seal goes away, you expose the aggregates, and then the freeze thaw starts popping it all up. So the better we can seal the top, the better off we're going to be.
You think we got good enough crew today?
I do.
Harder. Taylor, just knock the rocks down. Okay. That's all I heard.
You're like a ballerina.
Don't put that on there, Bill. Come on. Edit. Fill the whole room.
That looks nice.
All princesses stuff.
I love it.
We want to
I think you want to make it
understand.
Marty?
Yeah?
The next morning I cut control joints to help prevent cracking, and I opted for this method over a hand troweled method just because it was one less thing to worry about when the concrete mix was wet, and I think it provides for a smoother overall surface. A couple of days after that I pulled the forms off and pretty much everything was ready to go.
I don't want to get splintered.
No, you won't.
Why?
So now that you've seen pretty much how everything went together from the start of the forms and then having everybody come over and help me pour the concrete, let me try to answer a few questions that I'm sure some folks might have about some of my decisions in doing some of these things. But first, I did want to say that this pour was a huge job, and I'm pretty sure that the original 2 to 3 people I was planning to help me, we could have gotten it done. But without my wife's Uncle Norman, Bryce, Adam, Taylor, to come and help me with some of the more skilled labor or skilled technical aspects, it wouldn't have turned out near as nice as it did. So let's get to the questions. So I'm guessing the biggest question that a lot of people might have is, why did I place the forms in the way that I did, and why do I have gaps in certain areas along the shop? Well, the quick answer for that is the fact that I want to keep this shop a technically movable structure, so I don't want it affixed to the ground for a variety of reasons that I'm sure some of you can figure out. And the other reason is because I was only going to order a certain amount of concrete and the cistern was going to be the priority. So I wanted to see if I could get the maximum usable space with this long strip down in front of the shop, this little walkway, and the little working pad in front of the double doors of the shop. So that is pretty much the reasoning for my layout. Is why did I leave the wood inside these transitions? And simply that was just because it was easier for me to build the forms in separate segments, and I still wasn't sure if I was going to have enough concrete to do this walkway. And that's pretty much the reason why it's not a monolithic single pour. But it doesn't really bother me that much. I'm just going to leave the wood in, and once that wood rots out, I'll just put another piece in, or maybe I'll pour a little 1.5 inch wide mini transition deal. If you're wondering how the doors are going to sit with the new slab configuration, let me open them and I'll show you a couple of the planned areas where I will likely have them have little stop points at. This door will probably always stop in this area, and I'll just use this little toggle bolt to keep that in place. And then this door will probably have a stop area right here so that I can work, still have an ability to walk around. Or depending on the wind, I may have it stop over here too. That way I can still get a welding bench or my other workbench around here pretty easily. And as a quick follow-up to the question about the gaps between the concrete and the container, what am I planning on doing with that area? I will probably end up cutting some thin strips of this foam insulation material, laying it directly at the bottom of the container, and then I will end up just doing some flat-sided rocks all in here, just to give a kind of generally flat surface. But until then, this will just be my sweeping trough for all my sawdust and stuff like that. But the reason for the foam is just so that there's no dirt or anything sitting directly against the base of the container, just to keep any moisture buildup and rusting from happening. And just to update you on the mini awning, that is finished. I didn't really video any of the process. I just kind of wanted to get it done. But if you are interested in how something like this goes up, I built it exactly the same way as I did the front awning, with the exception of these posts back here. This is all a steel structure that I just concreted into the ground. But I used the same roofing, plywood decked over rafters. Alright, so that's pretty much it. I hope it was interesting to those of you who are wondering the ins and outs of a concrete pour. I am certainly not a professional, and honestly this job would have turned out terribly if it had gone the way I originally planned. And I just thank my wife's Uncle Norman and my father-in-law for bringing some extra skilled help. If you're wondering about the culvert cistern, that will be its own dedicated video, but I still am just waiting for the concrete to fully cure before I put the inside coating and do the plumbing. As for the next projects for the shipping container, I am thinking that I'm definitely going to get to doing my little welding bench or assembly table that will pretty much stay out here on the front pad. I'm just thinking that that will help me for my workbench installations that are going on the inside, since I'm planning on using metal legs for them. So I guess that's probably what's going to most likely come up. Right now my dog Olive is just licking my leg, so they're kind of taking my focus off. But anyways, as always, I thank you for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and we will see you next time. Yeah. She likes to put her paw on my arm when, when I'm doing this. Yeah, don't you, huh?